Welcome back, everyone. If you are not here, you may want to tune in. We got someone on the show that happens to have a reputation for knowing a lot of different ways to make money in crypto. Kicking off the new series, Making Money in Crypto. Number one, I thought of no one else better to invite on the show, talk about it. Actually, everyone else said no. It's the only guy that said yes. CryptoSloth is here to talk about. Just kidding. No, he was actually the first one I invited. Pretty sure. This is going to be an interesting one because we have a few different areas to cover. And again, I just want to do a series, invite people and basically talk about different ways to earn yield, maybe different arbitrage, different banking products, and just different ways in crypto, in the ecosystem to do these things. So without further ado, let me bring him back into the show. CryptoSloth, how's it going, man?
What's up, Max? Thanks for having me on, buddy. I'm glad to know that I was actually your first choice, and not your second or third.
You were. I think you were. I can't remember. I do a lot of logistics. I do a lot of coordination. Make a lot of thumbnails. But I'm pretty sure you were the first to at least reply back, which secured your spot. Yeah. Pro tip: if I send a message to you asking if you're available in a certain place, if you reply back quicker than other people, you may get that spot. That's how it works.
One of the coveted guest spots on the RHMax channel.
That's what I've heard people say it like just now. That's what I've heard from time to time.
I've heard it once right now.
It just happened. Uh-oh. MA, I told you, man, I won't let you down. Bear is here. Bear is back. He is ready to make some cash. Bear's here. I'm gonna put him back down there. I had him earlier. MA was here, and he's like, Bear, and I'm like, he's in the other room. I promised him I would go get him and bring him back for this stream, though. And he said he may be back for this stream. And look at that. Look at him keeping those promises right there. Those maybe promises. What's going on, man? Before we get into checking that cash register and bank accounts and all that stuff. What we've been up to this past week?
What have I been up to?
Mm-hmm.
Jeez, I don't even know, man. A lot of school stuff, a lot of stuff like patient management, seeing patients, stuff like that. That's been kind of catching up on all that stuff. That's what I've been doing this past week.
Do you think your previous thought out career as a hygienist professional or something of that nature versus your new
me a hygienist?
Is it like there's like different ways? It's like calling a doctor like a I don't know, some other word that's not doctor. Is there there different tiers? You guys have like competition, different levels of things?
Maybe a dentist, man. I might be a hygienist. Come on, buddy.
I don't know. Somebody called me, told me I work in IT. I would be like, I worked in tech for over a decade. That's not quite, that's different than IT. That's a different, that's a little, again, not shitting on anybody in IT, but I'm just saying it's, it's like saying, I don't know. I don't have any comparisons on the top of my head, but it's funny that your reaction of that way, hygienist. So it's like, anyways, back to the thing.
I'm just messing.
If you, how do you reconcile that with your new identity as master of crypto in many different domains and your business that you've started on that going forward? Do you think you'll be doing both? Are you trying to retire from one or the other?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah, I have no idea. Kind of the idea is let's pursue both and see which one, has the most opportunity, the one that I enjoy spending my time doing more. It could go either way. Honestly, I have no idea. I'm just going to keep doing both because I enjoy both. And if one or the other presents a more obvious, upside or more obvious general just enjoyment overall for my day to day, then that's the one I'll pick overall. And then maybe the other one just becomes like a little hobby on the side. But like for right now, like most of my time is dentistry because I'm in school for it. So that's what I spend my time 9 to 5 doing. And then obviously after school when I have like work to do. But then with that, whatever time I have left is when I'm doing all my crypto stuff.
Is there a future where you see like where you're doing dentistry part-time? It's like you're doing crypto, like you have all your meetings and stuff all day, and then you like get everyone, just schedule me in for like 2 hours in the afternoon. I can do this teeth stuff. Mm-hmm. Like usually it's the other way around, but who knows, man? If you're able to, be super successful in crypto, like we all hope we're going to be in the next, it's always 2 year cycle or 2 years. It's always 2 years. Just wait 2 years. Just 1 to 2 years. who knows? Like what do you? So one thing is owning more of your time, at least owning your time, owning more of your time. But like, why is it important to even spend time on this stuff? Like, I kind of want to hear you talk about that for a minute too. Like, why is crypto over all these other things? You have your studies, you have your schooling and career, and you have all this stuff in front of you. Anybody could just take that road and just do hobbies that are outside of like banging on a computer all day long, trying to get money out of it. Like, why do you think this is an opportunity we're spending time on?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it's just the thing that's interesting to me. So I've talked about it before, but I have a pretty big history in like scientific research, and like biology and stuff. Specific yeah, biology research. And that stuff was interesting to me before because of all like the deep mechanics, complication, like all these cool ways you can like, just understanding biological systems and finding ways to find out new things that nobody else has discovered before through understanding the mechanics of the systems. And I find a lot of the same thought processes that I used there. I found it a lot in crypto. And the opportunity, at least in crypto, from a career perspective, from a career perspective, income generation perspective, is a lot more than like in a research career. That's not for like a research career, and that's not like necessarily the reason why I pivoted more towards crypto over research in the last couple of years. But I find that it scratches that same itch that research used to do for me a couple years ago. And then just the fact that it's a new up and coming asset class, the opportunity is pretty much, near infinite to the upside, both in terms of what our bags can do from a price appreciation standpoint, but also what kind of position I have the potential to set myself up in as like a quote unquote expert in like this up and coming ecosystem of like Richard Hart pulse chain stuff. Right. So it's a really, really unique opportunity with a lot more upside, in my opinion. And like just hypothetically, like it works out and I go full-time crypto. I think, the work-life balance of a dentist is pretty great overall compared to most careers. But I think the idea of entrepreneurship in crypto probably has an even better work-life balance than that. And that I could create systems that get high leverage in terms of income, both in terms of like my crypto bags, but also from like a business standpoint. And then still have time to do other things that I want to do, like things as simple as just like, exercising, jujitsu, just like having like breathing room in my day to be able to pursue the things that I want, both at a business level and on like a personal level. Plus more opportunities for maybe not more opportunities. There's a lot of opportunities for travel and networking and dentistry in terms of like conferences and stuff. But that stuff is definitely present in crypto a lot as well because it's like an internet. It's a asset class that knows no borders, right? Anybody can get into crypto pretty much, especially if their jurisdiction supports on ramping and off ramping with a fair amount of ease. And so the knowledge that I'm getting here is pretty much translatable to anybody anywhere in the world.
So it tickles your intellectual curiosity, which, yeah, I totally agree with you. It's the same thing for me. And also, yeah, if it's successful, money can buy freedom in a lot of different ways. So it's like, I love the Naval quote. It's like, get rich first and then decide what you want to do. Like that's the key. If you have all these plans, you think all these things, if you don't do the part that is essential first to be able to execute on your own time, do all this stuff, what's the rest of it worth? So, yeah, very cool, man. Let's see, Russ, ways to make money in bear market. Yeah, that's, we're going to get into that. A whole bunch of different verticals that apply both in the bull and the bear, pretty much apply to everything. I mean, we could do a whole thing like, how do you make money in the bear? To me, it's just like yield. To me, yield is just like yield, DCA for prices, stuff like that. Again, none of this is financial advice. I don't think it's just like stuff that, we're thinking of or otherwise. But to me, that's the first thing that strikes me is yield, DCA, and then when prices go up, you decide what to do from there, and you've been accumulating the whole time. Yeah, maybe we'll bounce off that for a minute, and then bull. How do you see the bull and bear? Like, we've been the bear for a long time now. Do you see your strategies changing in the bull?
No, yeah, 100%, man. Especially when we're getting Uniswap V3 dexes on Pulse Chain, like 9mm. I think their stuff is fairly close around the corner. At least Deva has hinted at that. That completely changes the game in terms of like what options you have for generating income during a bull market. And you can use V3 liquidity to generate income in both a bull and a bear, but I think it's way more powerful in a bull market, especially if you're holding the assets that you want to have throughout the entire bull market.
Is there a particular reason that V3 changes some of the strategies?
Yeah, man, because it's just it's concentrated liquidity. So you can set your liquidity within a specific range from price point A to price point B. And what you're doing is you're setting the parameters by which you experience 100% and permanent loss in either direction. And because you can concentrate the liquidity as tight as you want or as wide as you want, you have the ability to control the velocity at which you accrue the fees, because more of your liquidity, more of your tokens are at the range that price is being traded at. So it's like more of your tokens are being used to be traded, which means you are entitled to a higher percentage of the fees because you're doing more of the work. You're providing more of a service to the market. And that also lets you buy and sell a little bit easier. Specifically in a bull market, you're going to be generally wanting to sell. So setting like a fairly tight liquidity range above the price where you think price will go eventually in the future. And then as price moves through that range, you're going to be earning passive income through the fees that are being generated, and then also selling out of that specific position. So that's a really, really powerful way to use V3 liquidity in a bull market to be able to generate income while also having other people pay you to sell your tokens.
Yeah, it really reminds me when I started, first started playing around with liquidity. It was Uniswap V3, and where you can see like, here's all fees you've earned so far. It's got that whole thing, which when I went back to V2 dexes, like, well, where'd it go? That was so nice. I'd like to have that. It's kind of like an estimate, or you got to look at the coin totals. You got to remove it, all that stuff with V2. But that part, and then the ranges too. It's like, yeah. And then some of it you can just put up, I think you can put up like all of what, like you don't have to do one. You can do, I remember, maybe that's a question too. In certain pools, is it dependent on the pool or otherwise? I remember putting up like, all this hex, just purely hex on like 100%. But I remember those certain ranges where I couldn't do it or otherwise. Is there like nuances with like putting up just one side of everything and just making fees off of that?
Yeah. So if you want to do a single-sided position, let's just use hex USDC for the sake of this example. You want to put 100% hex up in a position. The entirety of your position needs to be above where the price is at. And if you think about it, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because what you're doing when you're placing liquidity in a pool is you're saying, hey, I'm willing to sell this asset at this price, or I'm willing to buy this asset at this price. Well, it doesn't make sense to put hex below the price is currently at. Like, say it's like it's a penny right now. It doesn't make sense to put it at 0.8 of a penny, because you would just sell it for the prices at now, which is more, right? So you can only put up a single hex on a single-sided position if it's above the price, and the same goes for below. So if you wanted to put USDC into it only, it would have to entirely be below the price, because it doesn't make sense to buy the token at a higher price that it is. You would just buy it off the market at the current price it is right now. And so anytime that your ranges crosses the current price, at that point, you would have to provide a ratio of those coins depending on how wide your range is on either side. So let's say you have a position that's really, really far to the right in terms of the price is higher and then just barely under the price. Most of your position is going to be hex with a little bit of USDC. And then if you move it the opposite way, where only a little bit of your position range is above the price and most of it's below it, it's mostly going to be USDC and a little bit of hex.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just thinking in the bull market, then is it kind of like, okay, I think the price is going to go up. I'll do 100% hex, and if the price goes up, I'm making the fees. I still have my hex, but I'm also making the fees in whatever other pair it is plus hex, right?
Well, if it goes into your range, you don't have all your hex anymore. You have a percent of USDC at that point, because the price that the amount that the price has moved through your range, that's literally meaning people are taking the hex that you put into the pool out and putting USDC into it, and that's the impermanent loss of it. But in the situation where we're looking to sell, that's actually what we're looking for.
Right. Okay, so you're basically taking profit on the way up while earning fees.
Yep.
With V3 in a upward trend during a bull, for example.
Exactly. And you're supporting price at the same time, right? You're providing liquidity for the people that want to enter the market to be able to do so. Because a lot of times you'll find when there's low liquidity, you actually get larger players who want to move in decent amount of money, 6 to 7 figures. They are off put by the high amount of slippage that exists when there's a low liquidity environment. right? So you're actually providing a service to allow the larger players who are coming into our ecosystem to enter without incurring a bunch of slippage. And that's like what you're compensated for. That's what the fees on that's what the fees are. That's why you're getting fees when you're providing liquidity in the first place.
So I think we talked about before, V2 being maybe good for an earlier project where maybe the liquidity is tighter, or the pairs and otherwise are set up in a way where it's easier for price to go up, maybe in a project's first couple years of being out there. So, and then V3 is one of those things where, is it better? Is it better for the users or better for the LP providers in that case versus the price, or is there some nuance there?
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance there in terms of like where the benefits and pros and cons of like of a V2 versus the V3 DEX, and a lot of the pros and cons revolve around the ability for price to move, as well as the liquidity provider's ability to make fees. So we'll start with the liquidity providers, and it's definitely more obvious that the liquidity providers have a benefit on the V3 system because, like Golke says, they can put their liquidity in a tight range and earn a high amount of fees, high APRs, with much less capital than you would need to make that same amount on a V2 system. Excuse me for a second. I'm coughing like you, Max.
Contagious.
But and that's really good, and it's also providing a lot of liquidity in a tight range. So typically in a V2 system, because it's X times Y equals K, that's the formula that dictates how many coins are being distributed for each buy and sell, and what the price is after each buy and sell. Per that formula, price is spread across an infinite range from 0 to infinity. And by definition, what that means is that there's a certain amount of liquidity, and actually it's a lot of liquidity that isn't being utilized at the given price because it's spread across all possible price points, right? But with the Uniswap V3 position, most of the liquidity is concentrated at a certain range, so that order execution is better. Basically, I think stable coins is a really good way to exemplify this idea, in that USDT, USDC liquidity pool should stay at a 1-to-1 ratio because they're both able to be arbitraged independently of that liquidity pool for $1. But if you're putting it in a V2 system, not only are there prices from like 99 cents to 1 cent, $1.01, where most of the trading happens, because the arbitrage bots will close that gap really, really quickly. There's also price points at like 1-to-1, 2-to-1 on either side, 3-to-1 on either side. It's through an infinite range. And all of these different prices are never going to be traded at because the gap gets closed really, really quickly. Well, on a V3 system, you can concentrate all your liquidity between 99 cents and $1.01, so that all of your liquidity is being used to form the orders, to get the best order execution according to that specific pair. And that's one of the benefits of V3, of that concentrated liquidity, is more liquidity efficiency. But the downside that V2 has over V3 is that it can be much easier for large players with a lot of money, especially large numbers of that specific coin, to suppress price, or both to suppress and to support price. But we see it a lot with suppressing price. And HEX actually is a really, really good example of this. So most of the gains that we've seen in HEX were on Uniswap V1 and V2 systems. And these were X times Y equals K systems. And the reason why price was able to move so much more on those earlier versions of Uniswap is because all liquidity was spread out across an infinite price range. So there's an equal amount of liquidity at 5 cents as there was at $1. At that given point in time. So HEX was able to run through all of those with an equal amount of order execution efficiency. When most of HEX's liquidity moved over to V3, what happened is that we saw these liquidity gaps of people who didn't want to provide any tokens to be able to trade at certain price ranges. So you may remember this during the Uniswap, not the Uniswap, but the PulseChain V3 testnet launch, a couple weeks to a month before. We were trapped at about 7 to 8 cents. And between 8 cents and about 22 cents, there was this complete gap in liquidity that had basically nothing. It was basically like hundreds of thousands of dollars, or like $50,000 per tick, to like $100 per tick for like a large price range, like a 10-cent price range, all the way to 22 cents. And then we had some people put single sided liquidity positions at that range to support price eventually. And we saw price try to move up multiple times. People were buying in and putting at the end of the 7 to 8 cent liquidity range, but no one was willing to incur the slippage of buying the price all the way up to 22 cents. And that's because they would basically be losing money. They would be buying price up and then losing paper value because they're incurring a lot of slippage to do so. And no one wanted to do that. And that's something that's avoided in a V2 system because all prices have an equal amount of liquidity. So there's an equal amount of slippage across all price points. And so you see a lot of different you see a lot of price suppression, intentionally or unintentionally so, by liquidity gaps on a V3 system. Now, fortunately, actually, PulseChain kind of has the best of both worlds because we're getting third-party V3 DEXs built on top of a base V2 system, which is PulseX. So we're going to have concentrated gaps of liquidities. We're going to have concentrated walls of liquidity as well as liquidity gaps. But those liquidity gaps are going to be filled, at least for like PulseX, and HEX, based on the V2 pools that exist on PulseX. So that's a really exciting liquidity dynamic that I think PulseChain has that I think some other DEXs have it, but I'm really excited that we're going to get that dynamic ourselves.
Is there a difference? You got to do more versus price walls from liquidity inefficiencies. Is there a difference between price walls on V2 and V3?
Price walls can only exist on V3 because
Right.
you can't concentrate liquidity on V2. So it's like on a V3, you can have like a wall between a price A and price B versus V2 liquidity. There is only one wall. It's one height across the entire spectrum.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make that clear too. What's up, crypto stylist? Welcome. Yeah, let's actually add one more question before we get into the landscape here. MA, Burbear Connoisseur, can you guys explain Hedron V2 and will be a copy of what we're currently holders? Yeah, this is a question I get, and I swear I was paying close attention. Did to what Alex said when he was on your stream and the Telegram message and all. Still want some more detailed information about this. I'm sure we'll get some more when we get closer. But the whole trading in time period, can you just like talk about that for a minute? And of course, answering his question, but like when V2 happens, when Hedron V2 happens, what in your mind do you think is going to is going to prompt us to take action or not with their HSIs, with our tokens and otherwise?
Mm-hmm. And then really quickly, just before we move the subject, Alan brings up a good point. Limit orders would be the only V2 walls I can think of. Like, yes, technically on V2, you can have limit orders, which are price walls, or either a supporting or as resistance to be executed. They're just a little less, I guess you could say, maybe they wouldn't be a little less powerful, but yeah, he's right there. Anyways, to Hedron V2, we are getting new contracts with new tokens, and you will have to trade in your tokens or upgrade your stakes and upgrade your HSIs to be able to participate in the new features. So it is not an airdrop. There are things that you have to do to basically say, hey, I want to participate in these new upgrades. So there is a potential scenario where the community as a whole decide, you know what? I don't want these new updates. I don't want these new upgrades to my tokens. I want to stay at the current version that we have. That is completely a possibility. But if you participate fully in the conversion, it will essentially, the end result will be as if you had an airdrop of a one-to-one copy to everything. Alex has mentioned that there are some timelines to be able to fully convert everything over. And the only thing that doesn't have a timeline, according to his official announcement, is WhatsAs. Those will be able to be converted at any time going forward into the future. So yeah, it will be completely new, but it will be a one-to-one representation of what you have if you decide to migrate over.
WhatsAs are interesting here because there's, the other ones, people decide not to move over for Hedron. Otherwise, well, now you got to worry about liquidity. You got to worry about like support in other ways. Like you got to be able to trade it. If there's not, is it dead? All this stuff. But with WhatsApp, our DeFi NFTs, our ICOSA pools type deals, like is there a case to be made they don't even need to be converted over? Is that just like a formality type of thing? Is anyone, I guess, what is the incentive for doing that? Because you can always, unless they just don't play well with the new contract.
Well, if you want to redeem your WhatsAs at any point, you're going to want to do it on the contract version that has the most value. So let's just have a scenario where everybody moves over to V2 and nobody wants to stay on V1 anymore. Well, the ICOSA V1 tokens will probably mostly be burned, right? So the redeemability of the WhatsAs on V1 are essentially nothing because all the tokens are gone. So you'd be inflating a token. You would be burning your WhatsApp for a token that doesn't have a liquidity pool, and you essentially own 100% of the supply, and no one's looking to buy it. So you want to migrate it over to V2 to get the token that's being traded that has the liquidity pool that you're able to exit on. But with the WhatsAs, But with the WhatsAs, you can hold them on V1 for as long as you want, and then reserve your right to upgrade them basically until you're ready to decide when you want to burn them to sell. Or if you're looking to sell them on the secondary market, you're going to be wanting to sell the one that has the most volume. So if the V2 WhatsAs have the most volume and looking to sell it, you're going to want to convert it and then put it on a NFT marketplace.
Didn't Alex mention something about there being a time frame to take certain action or to convert over?
Yes.
To keep like certain, I don't know if it's arbitrage or certain other opportunities that weren't healthy or otherwise. Yeah. I don't remember what he said on that.
Let me look for it. Liquid coins can be migrated for 30 days after launch. After 30 days, the redemption rate cuts in half. After 60, half again. Redemption disabled at 90 days. So essentially, it's a 30-day window to get a 1-for-1 of everything.
And then up to 90 days, what was the deal?
Yep. At 90 days, the redemption is disabled. So you're locked into one side of the contract or another at that point.
So you only have up to 90 days to convert your WhatsAs, for example.
No, WhatsAs are forever.
WhatsAs are forever, but you have up to 90 days to trade in your ICOSA and Hedron 1-for-1.
Yep. For the liquid coins, the stakes can be migrated, but the exact details haven't been given out for that. And so we're still waiting for more details on Alex. He teased Q4 of this year to be the testnet, but we haven't had any updates since the one that he did, a couple months ago.
Can you just on the? Am I getting the 30-day? What was on the 30-day? What was happening again versus 90?
Yeah. So from the day 0 to day 30, you get a 1-for-1 copy of everything that you upgrade if you upgrade. So for every Hedron that I put through the contract upgrade, I'll get one of the Hedron V2. From day 30 to 60, you will get half. So every 2 that I put in to upgrade, I'll get 1 out the other side. Day 90, it'll half again. So every 4 that I put in, I'll get 1 out the other side. And then at day 60, it'll half again. So 4 to 1. And then at day 90, you cannot upgrade anymore. So you're stuck on whatever side that you're on. This is the only one part that I have a little reservations on in terms of the upgrades, because I would feel really bad for people who bought Hedron, made stakes, and then just kind of forgot about it and aren't paying attention to kind of like a long-term hodl strategy and didn't really want to put any more attention. And then all of a sudden, if everybody upgrades, they're kind of left with a worthless token. I would feel bad for those people who, just hodl mentality, threw their coins, locked them up, and lived their life, and was going to come back later whenever it is. But I'm sure Alex thought of that, and we'll see what happens when we get more specific details when the testnet launches. How do
you avoid that? I mean, even not saying we'll ever have a HEX V2, but we talked about this before. What if Alex's technology works so well? There's a HEX V2 where it works both on PulseChain and Ethereum and every other network. I don't know, but is it you just set yourself a calendar when you participate in crypto in general? This not specific to this ecosystem. I'm sure I remember especially in 2017, there was all kinds of we're going to do another token. Here's your time period to convert it over. And I'm like, I haven't even looked at this token for six, am I too late now? Like I'm pretty sure I've gotten screwed a couple times, a long time ago doing that. I don't remember can't remember which tokens they were hardly, but anyways, you just need to set yourself every 6 month calendar thing of check news on this token to see just in case. Is that is that the best way to do it?
That's one way to do it. Or follow people on Twitter if you're on Twitter a lot, or every once in a while. Hop in the Telegram every once in a while, just say, hey, what's the updates? Stuff like that. Or you can follow my channel for the Hedron stuff. I'll be talking about it when it happens.
I thought you were a fame guy. You were a famous guy now. You're a Hedron guy.
I am famous. I'm not as famous as you, Max. You've taken the lead in our social media competition.
You don't want the work. You don't want these hours, man. You don't want them. Hey, Black Pepper says, gonna suck to get wallets out of deep cold storage to claim upgrades. Here's the 90 days. What do we do here? I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, what's the better solution? There's not another solution, right?
90,
Like you
90 days
gotta
is
cut
a
it off
long
at some point.
time. 90 days is a long time. That's 3 months. I'd say the 30 days is a pretty tighter. It's a tighter timeline to get the 1-for-1. But 90 days. If it was 90 days for the 1-for-1, 3 months is a lot of time to be able to signal blast it to social media. And like every day, I'll like schedule a tweet every day. It's like, hey, did you upgrade your Hedron and Icosa yet? Like question mark. I schedule that once every day for 90 days. And then as long as you pay somebody that comes in and pays attention at some time, at some point during those 3 months, then they'll hear about it. It just takes a little bit to learn like what you need to do, why you're doing it, do you want to do it, etc., etc. So yeah, in my opinion, it will be a little bit of a transitionary period, and it will be a little bit of there'll be some pain and some resistance to it for sure. Just because you have to do extra things, and we're getting new tokens, new contracts, new things to understand, etc., etc. But I think afterwards, once it's all said and done, and we know exactly where the community wants to go with these new upgrades, whether they accept them or not, assuming they do, I think the user experience will be much easier. And I think if I'm reading into things correctly and my speculations are correct, and this is just me speculating, I don't have any information from Alex specifically, I think it's going to make these upgrades are going to make it easier for Alex to be able to integrate Hedron and Icosa into future things that he builds.
That guy, I don't think he's going to build anything else. I think he's pretty much done, right? He doesn't tweet about any new ideas ever.
Yep.
One more on this beautiful ecosystem. Will Icosa and Hedron yield dry up? That's something we talked about before too, as far as different opportunities to make yield on the coins, LP, maybe farming, different stuff too. But do you think you think staking will still be competitive, or I guess we're going to call it mining V2?
Well, I mean, it's already dried up in a lot of ways, right? Like the HSI auctions the volume is much lower. I haven't checked it in a while. Actually, I should probably go do that. Just kind of do a little run through update on what's going on with that. But there just isn't as much activity because Hex isn't doing as well. So because Hex isn't as valuable right now, or I should say valuable, isn't as favored right now. Hedron and Icosa derive their value from Hex and T-shares. So if Hex isn't doing well, Hedron and Icosa aren't doing well. And so we're not getting a lot of burning of Hedron, which means the yield is drying up. That also means less inflation for Icosa, so that's kind of a silver lining there. But we're already in a situation where the single-sided staking of Hedron and Icosa to get Icosa inflation is not super favorable from an APR perspective. I still have my stakes personally because I set them up a long time ago, and I'm just not going to end stake them until I feel like there's something I want to do with the token. So any yield that I get is just basically gravy because it's essentially me holding a liquid position while also accumulating coins in the background, which I think is awesome. But yeah, Icosa and Hedron yield can dry up according to different market conditions, and we are in a specific market circumstances where the yield is simply not competitive with some other yield farming opportunities. Like on the PHUX DEX, it's much more lucrative to put your Hedron and Icosa into that pool and then earn the APRs associated with that and earning the PHUX token.
Are they high? So is it like 40, 50, 60% on PHUX versus what is it for the average? Or are you talking about like how would you compare it? Would you say like the average versus average?
I haven't seen what the APRs for Hedron and Icosa staking are. I'm just assuming they're fairly low because I don't see too much activity in terms of the auction house. There was a big day a couple weeks ago, but that doesn't happen as frequently as it used to. But the Alex Hedron Maxi Pool is paying anywhere between 30 to 70% right now, depending on how much VEPHUX you have, which I'm sure 30% is probably higher than what those inflation pools are paying out right now, if I had to take a guess off the top of my head. But because the payouts and the single-sided staking on Hedron and Icosa are dynamic, it's not as easy to calculate APRs.
So does Hedron V2 change this? I know it fixes or upgrades a few different things, but you think it's what are your hopes for it? Do you think it's going to revitalize the Hedron ecosystem?
I think it has the potential to, especially with the ability to stake either token on either network. So you can take your eHedron, bring it over to PulseChain, and stake it for PI COSA. And you can do the opposite: take your pHedron, bring it over to the Ethereum side, and stake it for EI COSA. Right, so people can bring over their Ethereum versions over to PulseChain to stake it for the PulseChain version if they want to concentrate all of their liquidity just to get their. If they want to concentrate all of their tokens for staking points to be able to get the one that they value more than the other. So that dynamic will be really, really interesting and create variable APRs across the different chains, as well as the ability to bid with either token. So you can buy PHEX stakes with eHedron on the liquidation auction if there are HMIs available, and the same is true in the opposite way. You can buy EHEX stakes with EHEX HMIs with pHedron on the other side.
Wow. I'm hoping this tech, hopefully Alex nails it, and like it'll be hopefully one of a handful of innovations coming out of our ecosystem. Yeah, super excited for that, and it deserves it. Like these are super utility things that people need. I was talking about in the earlier stream about Maximus guys are awesome. They're just building all this stuff that the ecosystem needs. Hedron, Alex, building all the stuff that we need. It's not all these just short-term games. Oh, here's a token, go buy it. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. This is like setting it up. It's fulfilling like the 15-year deal, delayed gratification of like, hey, we want this thing to last forever. We need these products to make it last forever. So those guys putting in work.
What I'm really excited about is, Alex teased a while ago a rocket pool fork for PulseChain, and ICOSA will be the collateral for that. So that's something I'm really excited about because it's the first real solid use case for people to actually buy ICOSA off the market and or send their HEX stakes through the buyback to be able to accumulate that ICOSA.
Yeah, putting validators out of business. What the heck? No, it's actually going to be pretty interesting use case. I don't have the technical details. I can't wait when we do to cover it as a PulseChain validator. It's going to be cool to see how Rocket Pool fits in and how it changes things.
Well, it's going to be great to put your PulseChain in there because you can hold liquid PulseChain while also getting exposure to the validating APRs.
Yeah, you want to explain that? What you know so far of if we do get a Rocket Pool if we do get a Rocket Pool fork. What does that mean for what you can do with your PulseChain? Is that another place to put it?
Yeah, so I guess that's on theme with the new show that you have, how to make money in crypto, right?
That's what we're doing right now. You're true.
Yeah, so Rocket Pool is essentially like you think of it like a way to pool tokens on Ethereum to be able to run validators, right? So it's like you need 32 Ethereum to be able to run a validator. That's really not an accessible amount of Ethereum. That's a huge barrier to entry. To be able to, that's a huge barrier to entry for people who want to be validating on Ethereum. And so what Rocket Pool did is they said, well, okay, if you have 16 Ethereum, you can run a validator, and then the community can come in and deposit Ethereum into the system and deposit ETH into the system to cover the other 16 ETH, right? And then when you deposit your ETH into the system, you essentially get like a liquid staking derivative of that token whose value goes up relative to the amount of ETH that gets distributed to the validators to back those derivative tokens. Right, so it's like your tokens are being placed into a pool that are being given to validators for them to validate, and then part of the rewards that they get for validating are then distributed back to you because you're putting up the capital to allow them to validate in the first place. And so that's really cool because you can hold a liquid ETH token that gets exposure to the Ethereum price, but also is accruing value in the background because more ETH is being generated than the new tokens that are being minted. And so if Alex decides to go forward with this Rocket Pool fork, we will be able to have that option on PulseChain, where it's essentially like a single-sided PulseChain staking position where you can deposit into the protocol. Validators will have 16 million Pulse in there, and then they would take 16 million from the community, pair it together for the 32 million that you need, and start earning fees. And then you're going to have a liquid staking derivative of PulseChain that will be earning more PulseChain in the background while you have your liquid tokens. So that's really, really powerful, in my opinion, because it's essentially, giving everybody access to the faucet of PulseChain inflation and bribes that people give to get access to the blocks without having to run the hardware themselves. And on Rocket Pool, like you need collateral because say the validators aren't working correctly, they drop blocks, whatever it might be. The validators that are part of the Rocket Pool need to have a punishment for that, and that's what the collateral is. I forget if it's Ethereum on Rocket Pool or not, or if it's their Rocket Pool token. But Alex has teased that ICOSA would be the collateral token for his fork on PulseChain. So validators who want to participate in this, like say Max has a whole series on how to be a Rocket Pool fork validator on PulseChain, they would need to go buy ICOSA off the market or send HEX through the HSI auction to get that ICOSA to be able to participate in the first place. So that's putting buy pressure into the ICOSA chart and or volume on the liquidation auctions.
So instead of having RPL, which is probably the token for Rocket Pool, it would be, are we using ICOSA for that? Is that what you're saying?
That is what Alex has teased, yeah.
Wow. That is, boy, this new world disorder, ICOSA is 2 cents right now, all-time highs, $1.50. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. If Rocket Pool fork happen and ICOSA is used, could be exciting times.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Yeah, I didn't think we were going to cover Hedron as much, but I kind of forgot you were a Hedron guy. Like I said, I thought, you were branching out. You didn't want to be known as Hedron guy. You want to be known as, you want to be famous. And that's something that, let's get into that too, because we're coming up on almost 45 minutes and we haven't even painted the landscape of strategies. However, we went over a few different cool stuff. Different ways to make money in crypto. What are some of the strategies that you've used or talked about, or what, you don't have to give us any secrets, but like what are some things you're looking forward that you've deployed in the past, and also you're looking forward to, seeing there's opportunities to do in the future across staking, with HEX, PulseChain, ecosystem coins, yield farming, leverage, different opportunities, stuff like that.
Yeah, so I think the first layer to that is always like the single-sided staking for the inflation of the token. So that's like your HEX, your Hedron, your ICOSAs, where you just put them in a contract, you let them sit there, and then new coins get accumulated over time. That's the easiest, most risk-free way of doing it because your only risk is price volatility at that point. The next layer up from there is probably like liquidity providing. So like on PulseX V2 or V1 with the farms, 9-inch now, and PHUX, you can put tokens in a liquidity pool, stake those liquidity pool tokens, and earn the incentive token of that DEX. Another option is like what you have up here is starting to use collateralized loans to be able to take advantage of these yielding opportunities, right? So you have things like fiat, where you can deposit tokens in and take a loan out. And then you can take your loan that you have and put that into a yield farm, for example. And if the yield of the farm is greater than the debt obligation that you have, the APR that you're paying on the loan, the interest of the loan, then the difference is basically pure profit for yourself. And what you're not risking your initial stack in the same way as if you had to sell that initial stack to be able to get into that liquidity position or that yield farming opportunity. There are drawbacks to that because you are putting up collateral and you are using leverage versus using your token. So that with that extra kind of reward, where if it works out and you're able to pay your loan off, you now have a bunch of free coins. If prices go in the wrong way, then you could lose your collateral along the way. What I'm talking about here on the article that you have pulled up are just parameters to keep in mind when you take a loan out on fiat. So you need to keep in mind the collateral that you're using, the loan, the token that you're taking out your debt in. So like, what are you putting up? What are you taking out? And then where are you getting your yielding opportunity? Because if you change each of these individual variables, even one of them, you completely change your risk profile of the of your loan that you take out and the risk of the yield that you're farming for. We're also going to have more collateralization protocols coming up. The most obvious one is liquid loans and earn protocol, where you'll be able to collateralize your Pulse and PulseX to be able to get a stable coin. And we also have other protocols like Tetra, Fiat, Famous, PHUX, 9mm. All of these are fee-generating protocols that are distributing part of their fees, if not all of their fees, to the native token stakers. So that's another form of single-sided staking that isn't from inflation in the same way that HEX, Hedron, and Icosa is, but rather is derived from the fees generated by the protocols. And that's just a different risk profile. That's just a different risk profile than the inflation model, but the risk is the same in that you only have the risk of the volatility of the underlying asset that you're staking. So that's kind of an overview of all the very broad, general ways you can earn yield. I'm excited for what for these bribes Fast Abdul keeps talking about.
He brings them up. I always read it as brides, and then I have to go back and see bribes. So I'm not sure if he's talking about brides or bribes.
I wouldn't put it past Fast Abdul for a mail order bride. He'd probably bribe somebody to get her. I said it.
How modern of you.
Yep.
The different, or I guess. Anyways, New World Disorder, PulseX Farm, Spark Swap, 0-inch, old winter trusted stable returns. How do you choose? He also had a tweet about, new farms are the way to accumulate fast yield stay until the yield is reduced in new farms. Is that kind of the yield is like farm hopping? Is that the more products we get, the launch on PulseChain, the more dexes, the more yield opportunities and stuff. Again, you got you're connecting to a dApp. Hopefully it's audited. Hopefully you put your money there. It doesn't go away. You got to be careful with stuff like that. But is that like a trend now? It's like basically farm hopping, like, oh, this new thing launched. Let me get in early, at least first couple weeks or first days or hours or so. There's 1,000,000% APR, and then it kind of goes down from there. Maybe the token price stays up. Maybe it goes down as well with it over time. We've seen with 9-inch launch, there was like crazy APR. It's went down, prices, tokens went down. However, maybe they'll go up in the future. That one seems to have a more broader plan and scale than some of the other ones that I've seen and heard of. But farm hopping, is that something that you're interested in? Is that a place to like take advantage of different opportunities too, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think farm hopping and quick flipping and yield farming can be a great way to earn a quick 10 to 100%, depending on how fast you are, and when you get in and when you get out. So the idea with that is, and 9-inch is the perfect example of this for our most recent history, where we have APRs of tens of thousands of percents for like a day or two, right? And so let's say if you have a 20,000% APR. Pull up my calculator, and you divide that by 365, you're earning 54% a day, right? So if you're earning 54% a day, divide that by 24 hours, you're earning 2% an hour. So if you multiply that by 5, in 11 hours, if you get in right immediately, you immediately earn 10% on your position. So if you get into the farm when it's really, really high, let's say you put in $10,000, well, you can earn 11% on that in 5 hours. So you leave it in for 5 hours, you get your $1,000, you pull everything out. And that's a way that you can make a quick flip basically on these yield farms by dumping the incentive token and throwing in your money really, really early. And so, but you have to be careful because this is kind of like a carousel. This is a PvP game. Like you're competing with each other, and your risk that you're taking on is that typically these high APRs are given to you because you're providing exit liquidity for other people. So with the 9-inch farms, you saw the initial farms that had a lot of liquidity were 9-inch and stable coins. And what that did is provided exit liquidity for 9-inch sacrificers. So if they sacrificed and they wanted to exit their position, they incentivized the community through high APRs of earning the BBC token to be able to provide the stables for people with 9-inch to be able to exit, right? Like that's that's why you're earning these high APRs, because you're providing a service, you're providing exit liquidity to people who have the tokens, and that's why you're compensated so heavily. And so it's a game of really quick in and out, where like you don't want the token to dump so fast that your APRs are out earning it. And usually during the very initial hours to days of a new protocol launch with these APRs, things can stay stable enough where you can get a cool 10 to 20% pretty easily, pull everything out, and de-risk completely. Now,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was just going to say that. So that's this farm, the ideal of farm hopping. Is there I guess different levels of risk. One is get in for a day or two, get out, that sort of thing. And then is there a case to stay in it long term, even if the prices go down? You're not earning 50,000%, you're earning 500% or whatever. But you believe in it long term. So you just, I don't care if the price goes down 50, 80% or whatever. I'm going to keep it in. I'm going to keep earning more because you believe it's going to go back up over time. What are there, are there healthier games? Are there easier ways to win rather than trying to time it?
Yeah, no, that is a strategy that you can employ, especially if you have a multi-year time frame, multi market cycle time frame, or even if you just want to play this current market cycle from where we are now to the top. That just requires a more fundamental and longer term conviction versus immediate yield farming for a quick flip to be able to get like a 10-20% return in a day or so. And I think that's perfectly valid. So we'll keep using the 9-inch example here because that's what we were talking about. So you have a long-term belief in 9-inch and the BBC token and the 9-inch token overall as a DEX. Well, maybe you do provide one of these in these liquidity pools, say a 9-inch BBC or the 9-inch to E9-inch pool, or maybe you provide 9-inch PLS because you want to be able to have exposure to Pulse at the same time. You just throw it in the liquidity pool and just forget about it, basically. Now, I would still recommend some level of profit taking during the initial days to weeks where the APRs are really, really high, and as they start to taper off, just to lock in the profits, and then you can buy back and lower to get an even bigger position. And if that doesn't happen, at least you've de-risked a little bit and have some cash on the side. So I would never, especially during those highly volatile, highly Ponzi-nomic yields where they're just like 5-digit yields. I would still recommend a level of risk management where you're taking profits during that time. But those profits can just be rolled back into when the hype dies down in a month to 2 months from there, and you have that long-term conviction. Then you can get a really, really big position in that ecosystem actually. And if that protocol like 9-inch does well over the long period, over a long period of time, say one cycle's worth, then you can make out really, really well, and you'll make out better than the person who just came in, like Hex Edit says, the liquidity locus who are there for a quick flip. So that all depends on your personal conviction, how much you like the token, the founder, the tokenomics, the protocol, all of that, on how you play it. But just because there are high APRs doesn't mean you can't have a long-term vision and a long-term position on these protocols. It just requires a little bit of different positioning and just a little bit of timing in terms of profit taking during the crazy times, and then buying back a really deep, big bag when all of the liquidity locusts leave and dump all of their stuff.
I don't even think about, I've heard liquidity locus before, but it's kind of, I try to avoid like the emotionally charged terms. I try to look at it as incentive structure. So to me, if people are going to go where they're incentivized. So whether there's like millions of dollars put in some new DEX on day 1 and it all leaves on day 14, that's just, to me, that's just the market. That's just the incentives were there. They're not there anymore. Have better incentives if you want to keep people. Like that's kind of a like a product deal at the end of the day. So I don't even liquidity locus, it's I've heard people use it before, but to me it's not. It's like getting mad at people for selling Hex or selling the coins or selling whatever. It's like their incentives are to take profit at some point. So why wouldn't they do that? Like if you want different outcomes, change incentives, right?
Yeah. If you have farms that are offering up 5-digit APRs, like you are signaling to the you're signaling to the people who are liquidity locusts or who are only there for the quick flip to say, hey, come over here and provide liquidity over here. And I think those incentives are aligned because they're trying to bootstrap liquidity. They're trying to get liquidity into the DEX as quickly as possible. So there is kind of a synergistic exchange there. Where people are, the DEX, say a 9-inch, when they had like 25, 50,000% APRs, they're signaling to everybody on PulseChain, come put your liquidity here to make a crap ton of money really, really quickly. And the people who have no interest in the protocol are going to come because they could potentially make a lot of money really, really quickly. And it's aligned incentives in that, they're getting a quick flip, and the DEX is getting a quick boost in liquidity, a quick boost in TVL upon launch. So it's still a I think fair exchange. And then as soon as it drops, because the people were only there for the greatest amount of yield, because it dropped, that's what it is. Then they leave.
Trying to find a tweet here. I called it. I set up had alerts that I'm going to be using for new products launching and stuff too. That is talking about like. I did a tweet on. Okay, yeah. Let me just pull it up real quick. So, signed up. I did a whole thread of like how to catch. How to use old school tech of like basically just page changes to catch when things launch, and the detection. I got an email, and the detection actually caught it when it was at 2 million, almost 2 million% APR for 9-inch die. So
when it immediately launched, yeah,
it was like right when it launched, because this thing would every 5 seconds it would check for a page change, and I set it to like check for the page change here because I want to know when it launched. And then I got this email. It's like, oh, the page changed, and then that was like the instant it launched or around it. Yeah, almost 2 million% to attract people to come in. Provide liquidity.
Nice.
So thought that was fun to look at. Again, that's why we're talking about these things. It's not to promote or tell you, to go do these things or otherwise. It's like, hey, here's our experience with them. Here's like the risks that we've seen, and kind of walk through it. If that's not for you, you totally don't have to participate. We have plenty of less risky products. You can stake. I mean, I'll pull this up real quick before we move on. Staking, I did a 1,000 T-share challenge. Anyone wants to take it? It is open to anyone who wants to try to put it together, but I'm taking it myself. I'm trying to get there. I'm not sure if I'm going to get there in November, but I think it's definitely an aspirational thing. But let's see, which one? Give me a pick one, Sloth. Doesn't have to be true or not. I just don't want to taint it myself. Which option?
Not interested.
Oh God, I knew it. So we got 156 votes. 42% of people, so around 80, 70, 60, 70, 80 people are like, they're down for it. They're down there. They're trying to get, whether it's practical or not, they're going to try to get their portfolio trending that way. And 26%, though, interesting, already there. If this poll is correct, was it 30, 40 people or so? Already there, already have that many. There's a lot of people, again, I don't know if they just follow me on Twitter or not. They see the poll or they're just lying, one of those. I've did these polls before about how many T-shirts you have. I've seen a consistent number of at least up to 50 people who participate in them saying they already have over 1,000 T-shirts. There are people in the system who have these things. It's not a unless they just, and those same people that keeps clicking the wrong button. There could be a lot of people in HEX that have T-shirt exposure.
I'd love to have 1,000 T-shirts. That'd be dope.
What is it? Yeah, you want to explain that to you? Like what if you have 1,000 T-shirts? Like what if anyone has 1,000 T-shirts? What power do you wield? Like what does it do for you having that many T-shirts?
Yeah, well, if you were around during the Hedron days and you got the tax bonus, you got a lot of Hedron dripping to you every single day, so that's pretty dope. But basically, it means you have a bunch of HEX due to you over time, depending on how far you punted it out. Right, so you're earning inflation every single day in the HEX ecosystem, and when it comes out, you have the ability to affect the price chart potentially, because you can. That's a dolphin position. That's a dolphin position. So you can really hurt the price chart if you sell all of it all at once, depending on where we're at in the market. But you also have the ability to get a lot of different passive income, specifically through things like liquidity providing. So you have a lot. You have a lot of options with 1,000 T-shares as soon as your T-shares start coming due, right? So it's like we were running the numbers in the background. On each chain, it's between like $80,000 to $90,000 to get 1,000 T-shares, but you have to leverage at least 10 years of your time. So yeah, you have a lot of T-shares, but you have no liquidity for 10 years. So you're not going to be able to exercise those options for at least a decade. So you have to ask yourself, is those 1,000 T-shares worth it? Is it worth locking that money up, that amount of money up for 10 years? And that's going to depend on the person. For some people, maybe it is. And for other people, maybe they just can't afford that. They can't afford to lock up $80,000 for 10 years because they need that money now.
Well, do they have to lock it up? I mean, could you piece it out in HSIs, for example, or pools, maybe the Maximus pools or otherwise? Like, what are the options if you want to have liquidity, get T-share exposure, but with liquidity and you had that much HEX?
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good point. So you're getting T-shares, but you're sacrificing liquidity, and now we have a couple of different options. So I think the most liquid version, the most liquid exposure to T-shares would be the Maximus DAO products. So you can buy a whole bunch of Maxi or Deci or whatever one's the cheapest. And if you go to look into maxi.com, you can go and figure out the exact one that would be the best to buy to get the most T-shares based on the current price and their discount relative to the yield that they have. And with those, you would still have the ability to sell them as a PRC or ERC20, which is great. And with the PHUX pools, they're much more liquid than they used to be. But you are still trading some amount of liquidity to get them. So I would keep that in mind with that. But that is the most liquid option to having a T-share exposures, which is great. So you can still play market cycles, this market cycle if you want, in terms of selling the tokens. Yeah, and then the next option would be something like an HSI. That's a less liquid version, but there are two avenues for liquidity. One, secondary market sale, so selling them on an NFT marketplace or selling them for ICOSA. ICOSA is really not a good option now because you're losing a lot of value, and ICOSA is a very illiquid asset right now, so you're still not able to move a lot of money in or out with much efficiency. And NFTs inherently are illiquid because you need a one-to-one buyer and seller. So there is no guarantee that you'll be able to enter or you'll be able to exit your position just because you put up an offering on an NFT platform. So I would say if you want, I'd say the Maximus stuff is the best balance between liquidity and price exposure. Yeah, liquidity and T-share exposure. Where you don't have direct exposure to the T-share because you're holding a receipt, but that receipt is redeemable for the HEX underlying in the stake. At the time of redemption, so like it's pretty damn close. And then the next option would be the HSIs, where you actually own the T-shares yourself in your own HSI stake, but you've compromised a lot of liquidity. And then the final one is just a native HEX stake that's locked on your wallet, where you have complete zero liquidity because you've locked it up, but you have the most direct exposure to the T-share. So I think for most people, the Maximus DAO route is probably the best way to go.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has their own situation. That's what makes it interesting with T-shares, the liquidity route, and just the HODL route too. You know, if you've came across, you have enough money, maybe getting 1,000 T-shares is only a fraction of your portfolio, and you're like, you know what, in 10 years, I want to see how this thing goes. I want to see how it goes. I want to collect all those, I want to collect all those fees. I want to collect all, get the T-shares now, and bet on the price in the future. They're harder to get. Of course, the T-share rate goes up. However, the price can go down and make them cheaper and all that stuff. Boy, I just, in my mind, just flashed in like this thing of flash of the future 10 years later and like HEX world domination. You get 1,000 T-shares. That's like being, it's like at least you feel like a billionaire. I would hope. I would hope at that point where we kick that much ass.
Yeah, man.
So hex.com, pretty cool. Let's see. So this is probably a question too that I think a lot of people are wondering and still don't have answers to in a lot of ways. Their Pulse chain, their PulseX, down in price, want to make yield. How do you do that? We got validators. You can go stake your Pulse right now. You just got to be a computer nerd until others, maybe a Rocket Pool or otherwise changes that. Or there are services where you can, pay people to do it for you and all that stuff. But how do you earn yield on your Pulse and PulseX right now when there's not a lot of price isn't up, but you want to gain more of it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Obviously, with Pulse Chain, the most obvious way to earn the income is validating. That's probably the safest, most risk-free way to earn passive income on your Pulse Chain. Excuse me, bud. PulseX a little bit more difficult. The only option right now is liquidity provided with it because we don't have single-sided staking on PulseX right now. Yeah.
So I've heard, I think, listen, David Feeder talking about that you can, for example, with fiat, right? You can deposit and earn some on your Pulse, and I think PulseX as well. Is that right?
Yeah, but the APRs aren't really worth it, honestly. I mean, you can, but it's like 1% a year.
Okay, so there's a place to do it, but the APR is not super high.
Yeah, let me pull it up. Let me find it. Where am I at? Fatty. fiat. Yeah, I'm on Ethereum right now. Let me go to PulseChain real quick. PulseChain. PulseX is earning you 0.3% APY. So basically zero. Now maybe in the future, if it becomes a more popular thing to deposit, maybe it might. It's not nothing. It's something, but it's essentially nothing. Yeah.
Okay. Just we'll answer this question real quick before we go into what about 95% don't have 10 t-shirts, let alone 1,000? Is there a different situation with HEX? Is there ways, if you have a small amount of HEX, other than, of course, staking it for longer pays better, bigger pays better, all the stuff you get, the bigger pays better, pulling stakes. You talked about, or maybe I think you talked about earlier, maybe the yield arbitrage aspect portion of it.
It's the same. I'd say if like you don't have to go for 1,000 t-shirts. Go for 10. Go for 100. Go for whatever. Pick a goal and go for it. And these options are available to you no matter how many t-shirts you want to accumulate. There are t-shirt accumulating mechanisms, and that's independent of how many you want to get. So if 95% of people don't have 10, we'll start with 10. Like shoot for 10 first, and then after that you can decide if you want 100 or not, or if you want 50 or not. There's no rules on how many t-shirts you can or can't accumulate. There are just different options to be able to accumulate them now.
And what would you say about, for example, yield? We still got the PulseX farms. Of course, APR is not what it used to be. However, PulseX WPLS still got 7% here. The ink pools are the highest paying outside of stables. So you got the RH coins right there as well. Anything around earning yield on Pulse or PulseX with PulseX platform or otherwise?
Yeah, I'd say the PulseX farms are not very attractive right now. The APRs are pretty low overall, unless you're really trying to look to exit a position a little bit. The stablecoin pairs are pretty useful for that, but for the most part, none of these for the average investor on PulseChain. 40, 50, 60% APR really isn't worth risking your bag. It's just better just to hold the tokens and hope for price appreciation at that point, in my opinion. Yeah.
Setting the high bar for 40, 50% isn't enough. I need that 10,000%. Yeah, I mean that is the option. A lot of people are facing that. Where what do you do?
If you have a lot of HEX, and Pulse, say millions of it, and you want a place to put it, that HEX wrap Pulse LP pool is pretty good. The DAI USDC ETH pools, those are pretty good. If you're looking to exit a position or you have a lot of them that you just want to throw in a liquidity pool together, like there are options for people to be able to. There are viable use cases for using these pools for specific people, but the APRs have gotten low enough where for most people it isn't as much worth it. It's probably better just to hold on for maximum price appreciation at that point.
What about, so we talked about yield, talked about staking, arbitrage. I mean, what are some other ways to make money in crypto? And is anything that you found the last few months that have been like, whoa, that's eye opening? I didn't think I would be doing that as much or interested in that, but that seems like something to pay attention to.
You have NFTs too, man. NFTs are a way to make money. What's going on in the Tang Gang is really, really interesting. So you have a lot of different projects who have a lot of different NFT projects that have been airdropping free NFTs to people who are holding like the HOA token, and people who have gotten those free mints have been able to sell some of their tokens, their NFT tokens, on a NFT marketplace for money. So if you participated in the Tang Gang over time, holding HOA, holding the other NFTs, then you had the ability to sell some of the free NFTs that you got for Pulse, which is pretty cool. in my opinion. So like, yeah, there are different more niche ways to be able to make money in this game outside of yielding or price appreciation. Yeah.
So more of like collectibles, assets, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
is
Exactly.
it beyond? Is it something more than? I guess frame it, because a lot of people look at NFTs like, oh, you're speculating on value. We saw them, go horribly wrong last bull market when the air came out. What makes NFTs today, or maybe some projects you're interested in, different than just this JPEG that people speculate on, or is it just
So,
that, but like different dynamics that make it more attractive?
well, it's both, right? So some of them in the say the Tang Gang, for example, it's just the art. Like it's artists who are creating art and they're wanting that art to exist on the blockchain, so people can transact with their work in a trustless peer-to-peer manner. Um, and so it's just a JPEG, like it's just or a GIF or something like that. That's all it is. But that's why you're buying it, because you're buying it to support an artist or to support their work, and to kind of the phrase that they use in the Tang is participate in their provenance, which is essentially their just like own little. I like to think of it as like their own little mimetic cloud, like their brand, their marketing, their association, like who they are as a person. Um, but there are also ones that have utility behind it as well. So the 9mm team, they did a launch. They gave 100 of their Pulse OGs to HOA holders, and then they minted out a 5555 collection of 1 million Pulse each, and they're going to be distributing their 9mm token to the minters and the holders of their NFTs. And so that token will be able to be staked for platform fees as well. So that NFT has a utility. There's a new one, Robo Rhapsody, that's coming out soon. The mint is on November 11th, and you have to hold 69420 HOA, one neckbeard orange punk, and a Grove Girls NFT to be able to qualify for the mint, and it's a free mint. But that NFT gets you access to essentially like a 3D animated AI robot that will give you access to this like AI platform that this guy Fully Croissant is creating. And so like, an NFT is basically just a receipt a programmable receipt on the blockchain that you're able to attach any qualities that you want that are supported by blockchain technology. You can attach it to these NFTs. And so, yeah, there was a whole narrative last bull market of like people paying millions of dollars for JPEGs, which is what they were doing, and they were overpaying for it. But JPEGs are art, and you can attach real utility to these NFTs. And so NFTs are already, like, in my opinion, an incredibly valid technology on the blockchain, one that I've always been interested in. The way I like to describe it is like NFTs are like a book, right? And yeah, they could have a flashy book cover, but in a lot of ways, what you're buying that book for is the contents inside, not just the book cover. But the book cover does get your attention when you're walking through the bookstore or you're on Amazon scrolling through the books to find a book.
So the community, maybe the collections, is that
Yep.
maybe the difference now? Trying to, between the ones that go for million and then go for nothing. Last time it was like a lot of maybe celebrities promoting like different, or just trading around different, just single ones. But now it's like there's more communities and more collections involved in it, and minting and like events and stuff like that. As far as the JPEGs go, I know the NFTs. I mean, I think NFTs, for example, like burning concert tickets or like tracking different access to VIP stuff. I think that's an obvious use case in the future. But as far as like investing in them, you think that's the biggest difference? Is like the community, the collections, maybe the artists, maybe that kind of group deal that will make them less likely to go to zero?
That all was there during the NFT hype phase back in 2020 or 2021, whenever it was. Like that was all like all of those narratives of community, social proof of social verification, like a ticket into like a social club. Those narratives were all there. It was just vastly overpriced relative to the value that you got from it. I think the Tang Gang is doing a really, really good job of forming their own internal community that is providing value to these NFTs in terms of using them as gated tokens to get into the next, say, free mint, as well as providing really good educational resources to the community. And so I think they're it can be really, really fun to watch that community grow and flourish over time, and the way that they're using NFTs to support artists and creators and builders on Pulse Chain.
Got a question here. Lego My Crypto. What's the best way to earn yield without locking away your money?
Probably liquidity providing. Liquidity providing is completely liquid. You can pull out your liquidity at any point as long as you don't lock up your LP tokens. So I would take a look at the PHUX token, PHUX DEX that probably has the nicest balance of risk to reward in terms of your yield and your impermanent loss risk, as well as your ability to hold assets that you want to hold long term, because you can hold multiple assets all at once. And so I'd say that's a good DEX for that. And then I'd keep an eye out for 9mm. When that V3 DEX launches, you'll have some concentrated liquidity plays that are also liquid because you can exit them at any time.
And one more here, more of a statement, but I kind of want to get the counter for this too. Loans are never a good idea. It's undue risk, especially if you don't need it. What is the case for loans being, like credit grows the economy, right? Like stuff like that. What is the case for loans being useful, and is it just that they're misused, or just not use the right parameters that keep people wrecked? I guess take the counter to that, and the risk side as well.
Yeah, I think having the ability to take out loans against your crypto by collateralizing them is a huge benefit and a huge utility that I'm glad that we have on PulseChain. And that's because I don't want to always have to sell my crypto to be able to extract liquidity from the system, right? Or to bring liquidity into my life, or to bring liquidity to find another yielding opportunity, right? It's the same idea of getting loans from your bank, or getting collateralizing your house, collateralizing assets. The exact same concepts, pulling out credit to be able to take advantage of other opportunities without having to sell your underlying asset. And yeah, he has a New World Disorder has a good point. If you don't need it, there's no reason to do it. But a lot of successful investors, a lot of successful entrepreneurs, a lot of successful people in the financial realm use credit and debt to their ability to increase their velocity of money. So for every dollar that you have it working in multiple places at once. And I think it's better to have these options than to not. But that is not to say it doesn't come with risks. There are risks, and there are big risks and palpable risks that come with taking out loans to be able to service some other thing that you need in your life that you need to be aware of before taking out these positions. But I would disagree. New World Disorder, loans are never a good idea. There are times where loans are a good idea. It's just finding the right time and the right opportunities to take advantage of them.
You kind of think of it, in the real world, you have good debt and bad debt. And, bad debt's like the credit card debt. You're just pretending you have a lot more money than you do. And, you end up paying, not paying them off, and you end up over time, you're losing at least short term. Maybe you get rich in crypto, pay them all off. That's the dream. But, or maybe you're still carrying that for a while, versus good debt. Maybe, well, I hesitate to say college tuition because that's way overpriced these days, but in that realm.
Yeah. Well, like, how great would it be, like, if you wanted to start a business, or you needed to get a down payment on your home, or you needed to, finance something in your real life? Well, instead of selling your crypto, maybe you have the opportunity to take a loan out against your crypto and then repay that loan over time in the same way. So it's the same concept of like decentralized money and decentralized finance, where you don't need permission from other entities to be able to access your funds and utilize your funds and get access and utilize your funds. It's the same concept here, where you don't need a centralized party telling you that you can or cannot take out debt against your assets. You can do it yourself, and then you take that liquidity and service whatever needs you need in your real life in the same way you would with other kind of debt.
Hex Edits. I like the AI art you're creating. You're making Sloth.
Thanks, Hex Edits. Yeah, man, I'm making my own NFT collection.
New World Disorder, do you have Discord? I do not. I don't have Telegram, Discord. I mean, I have Telegram, but I don't use it very often. I'm only in Sloth's channel, where Fast Abdul pretty much runs things. And,
he was deleting my messages in there. I was like, damn, he's getting ballsy.
Oh, he's the manager. He's the guy. It's that's who everyone works for, basically. Yeah. No, just on YouTube and Twitter, if you want to, follow me or reach out or talk time to time, all that good stuff, man. Great conversation. What do you want to take us out on? What do you is there? Yeah, what didn't we cover? Is there anything we didn't cover that do you want to touch on for a moment before we head out?
I think we covered most of it. I think for the goal of the stream, just to talk about the different ways you can make money in crypto, I think we did a good job. Obviously, each of the things we talked about, we can go into much more depth and detail on, going through specific examples. But as a brief overview, I think we've touched on pretty much every possible way you can make money in crypto, or at the very least on PulseChain right now. All the way from staking to liquidity providing to validating to NFTs. Like we covered the gambit. Man, I think we did a good job.
What maybe that's a good question then to end on. What don't we have yet? What are you looking forward to that we don't have yet as a money-making opportunity?
Yeah. V3 liquidity.
Liquidity. I'd also maybe throw liquid loans in there. Power City, that type of, minting stables, loans. Again, healthy loans, good debt. Chase. So why would, maybe that's a missing question for a lot of people too, is what would you do taking a loan other than you just don't want to sell? Maybe you want to get some liquidity or whatever, but, yield chasing opportunities. Maybe, there's something out there that, you don't want to sell, but you want to go take a loan on and go take that. You think you're going to make some money over. Again, there could be risky stuff. There could be not risky stuff, whatever it is. But the ideal is you would go chase the yield with that, go make the money, maybe pay off the loan, and then, get to keep the rest of it or part of it. So yield, those kind of yield opportunities for loans is, I think, what it's going to open up a lot of possibilities for people. People can get wrecked. Yeah. They're going to use the wrong parameters. Yeah. But it's like, it almost reminds me, like I was thinking about this the other day, the parallels with like socialism or otherwise. And if you like socialism, good for you. However, I prefer capitalism, even with all of its faults, because it's not like, I don't want to limit people. Say, okay, we shouldn't have these products because some people are going to misuse them. Well, some people are going to use them to do very, very well. So this just, unfortunately, some people aren't. But I don't want to take away those tools from people who can use them to do super, super well. Kind of in that way as well. So I would just say be mindful of that when you really hate something out there, you don't like something, you think it's bad or unhealthy or otherwise. No, not giving particular examples right now. Just in general, I see a lot of people have very strong opinions on certain things, and it's I think if you zoom out, maybe there's if they're, especially if they're helping grow the ecosystem, you got to think about, are you in it for the products that you like and you only want those to exist, or do you want everyone to have the tools for their particular talents to be the best versions of themselves and at the same time bring a lot of money into PulseChain ecosystem? I tend to fall into the latter camp.
Great points, man. I think that's a great way to end it.
That's all we got for you. Couldn't have said better myself, Sloth. Man, thanks for coming on again. I know
thanks for having me, bud.
I'm glad you had time. If you're busy, dental hygienist, whatever you are, schedule to come chat with me and give you some serious answers on how to make money in crypto. Number one, kicking off the new series with CryptoSloth. Where can people find you, sir?
Find me at cryptosloth.info right there. If you want to read some of my articles, I posted the new one that you just pulled up today. So I'd definitely go check that out. Throw your email in there if you want live updates on things that I'm doing. Sloth Crypto 3 on Twitter, X, CryptoSloth on YouTube. Keep an eye out as I am in the not final process, but I'm midway through creating my own NFT project coming up. CryptoSloth NFTs are coming to the field, are coming to the blockchain near you. If you want to get more details on that, go to my most recent stream, my Tangang stream. And towards the end, I give a nice detailed kind of like what my goals and aims are for that are. So I won't do that now, but if you're interested in that, go check it out there. And then I also do free 15-minute calls. So if you want to talk to me this weekend about the stuff that we talked about today, you can go to my Twitter, and I have my calendar up there, so you can book a 15-minute call if you want to talk about any of the yield farm stuff that we talked about today. That's where you can find me, guys.
Ask the Thunder request your view on Calm.
Yeah, Calm's cool. Thumbs up.
and there we have it. Shout out to Gifford Ware. What's happening, man?
No, what's up, Giff? I'm about to. Giff, you know where to find me after we sign out here, buddy.
GIF he's an alpha, and he creates websites and he codes now. And he was on 0% Winning show with Sloth one time, but he said he'd never do that again and only come back onto my show. But
0% downtime. That was a good show. I gotta bring that. I gotta bring that series back.
You gotta bring it back. The one episode you had in the series.
Exactly. Hey, that was pretty funny. That was funny. I'm pretty proud of that.
I've never had a cross stream joke before. That was pretty good. I hats off for that one. That's true. All right, everyone. That's all we got for you tonight. Scivive and 5555. We are out.
Peace out.